of distracting me, and it will then take me time to get back to where I was. Understand?
What if the man who created one of the most terrifying stories ever written absolutely hated its most famous movie adaptation? What if he called it a beautiful car with no engine and spent decades telling the world that the director got it all wrong? In this video, we're checking into the Overlook Hotel to uncover the shocking truths behind Stanley Kubrick's 1980 masterpiece, The Shining.
I can't get out!
From on-set trauma that pushed an actress to her breaking point, to a secret ending that was physically cut from film reels after the premiere, we're revealing the secrets that will change the way you see this film forever. Released in 1980, Stanley Kubrick's The Shining tells the chilling story of Jack Torrance, a writer who takes a job as the winter caretaker at the isolated Overlook Hotel, bringing his wife Wendy and psychic son Danny with him. Trapped by a snowstorm, the hotel's sinister presence begins to influence Jack, pushing him into a spiral of madness and violence. The film is a landmark of psychological horror, a masterclass in building dread. Do you remember the first time you saw it? The chilling twins in the hallway, the river of blood from the elevator, Jack's terrifying grin? It's a film that stays with you, a ghost that haunts the halls of cinema history. But the real horror story might just be what happened when the cameras weren't rolling. Number 10. The Lunar Confession? Let's start with a theory that's out of this world, literally. For decades, a persistent conspiracy theory has claimed that Stanley Kubrick used The Shining as a cryptic confession for helping NASA fake the 1969 moon landing. Proponents of this theory point to what they see as undeniable clues hidden in plain sight. First, there's Danny's iconic Apollo 11 sweater. Why that specific mission? Then there's the haunted room. In Stephen King's novel, The Forbidden Room is number 217, but Kubrick changed it to 237. Why? Because, the theory goes, the average distance from the Earth to the Moon is roughly 237,000 miles. Coincidence? Maybe, but the theorists don't stop there. They even point to the cans of Tang, the powdered orange drink famously associated with NASA astronauts, stacked in the hotel's pantry. For some, these aren't just details, they're pieces of a puzzle, a silent admission from a director burdened by a cosmic secret. However, the theory has one major flaw, a direct witness. Kubrick's own daughter, Vivian, who was on set for much of the filming, has publicly and emphatically dismissed the entire idea as a grotesque lie, stating her father was a man of artistic integrity who would never be part of such a deception. Real confession or pop culture myth? Either way, it adds another layer of mystery to the Overlook's already haunted legacy. Number 9. The Rusty Water Elevator. One of the film's most unforgettable and technically brilliant shots is the elevator doors opening to unleash a tidal wave of blood. It's a surreal, nightmarish image that has been burned into our collective consciousness. Planning this single shot took an entire year. The crew had to ensure the mechanics worked perfectly, as resetting the scene would take days of cleanup. After all that preparation, they nailed it in just 3 takes. But the real genius came when it was time to market the film. The Motion Picture Association of America, the MPAA, had strict rules against showing graphic violence or blood in movie trailers. A river of blood was completely out of the question. Any other director might have given up and used a different scene. Not Kubrick. He argued with a perfectly straight face that the liquid wasn't blood at all. He insisted it was rusty water leaking from the old elevator system. Incredibly, the MPAA bought it. They approved the trailer, and Kubrick got to use his single most shocking image to sell his horror film to the world, proving his genius extended far beyond the camera. Number 8. The Treacherous Fake Snow. The film's climax, a desperate chase through a snow-covered hedge maze, is a masterclass in tension. The vast, freezing labyrinth feels like a real, life-threatening location. But the truth is, none of it was real snow. To create that haunting winter landscape, the production team used over 900 tons of salt and crushed styrofoam. This concoction created a treacherous and challenging environment for everyone involved. The fake snow was deep, difficult to move through, and kicked up into the air, making breathing difficult. The actors and crew had to endure these harsh conditions for days on end to capture the perfect sense of cold, desperate isolation that Kubrick demanded. It's a perfect example of the painstaking and often punishing lengths the production went to achieve the film's chillingly authentic atmosphere. Number 7. The Lost Ending. The way The Shining ends is famously enigmatic. The camera pushes in on an old photograph from a July 4th ball in 1921, revealing Jack Torrance smiling at the center of the crowd. It leaves the audience with a haunting, unanswerable question. But that wasn't the original ending. The film initially premiered with a 2-minute epilogue. The scene took place in a hospital where Wendy is recovering. She is visited by the hotel manager, Stuart Ullman, who tells her that the police investigated the Overlook but found nothing out of the ordinary. No ghosts, no supernatural traces. He adds that Jack's body was never found. Before leaving, he tosses Danny a yellow tennis ball, the same one that mysteriously rolled up to him in the hotel. This ending would have completely changed the film, suggesting the events might have been a shared hallucination. Kubrick decided this was too neat, too much of an explanation. So a week after the film was released in theaters, he made a shocking decision. He ordered all projectionists to physically cut the scene from the film prints and send the footage back to the studio. This last-minute edit sealed the film's legendary ambiguity, leaving us forever trapped in the mystery of the Overlook. Number 6. The room number that became a legend. In Stephen King's novel, the most evil place in the Overlook is room 217. It's a number that has become synonymous with terror for readers of the book. So why in the film is it room 237? The answer has nothing to do with artistic choice and everything to do with business. The exterior shots of the Overlook Hotel were filmed at the real-life Timberline Lodge in Oregon. The hotel's management was cooperative, but they had one major fear. They were worried that if Kubrick used a real room number, like 217, guests would be too scared to ever stay in it again, costing them business. So they made a request. Could he please use a room number that didn't exist in their hotel? Kubrick agreed and changed it to 237. The irony? After the film became a global phenomenon, the most requested room at the Timberline Lodge became room 217, the very room number they were so afraid of. The legend they tried to avoid became their biggest attraction. Before we continue our countdown, let's take a quick detour from the hotel grounds to look at the massive shadow the Overlook has cast on cinema for the last 4 decades. The legacy of The Shining is so vast, it's a story in itself. The film's influence is a benchmark for psychological horror, shaping how modern filmmakers approach storytelling. Directors like Jordan Peele and Ben Wheatley have cited its impact on their work, particularly Kubrick's masterful use of space and atmosphere to create a sense of deep psychological dread. It became a reference for making a location feel like an extension of a character's mind, or even a villain in its own right. Interestingly, Kubrick himself was inspired by others. He famously showed David Lynch's surreal film Eraserhead to the cast and crew to set the unsettling, dreamlike tone he was aiming for. And its impact isn't just felt by filmmakers. Jack Nicholson's iconic performance redefined how madness could be portrayed on screen, influencing actors for generations. The film's imagery has been completely absorbed by pop culture. The Grady twins, the hedge maze, red rum. These are symbols that have been parodied in shows like The Simpsons and even paid homage to in Pixar movies. This cultural saturation has sparked endless analysis, from academic essays to entire documentaries like Room 237, which explores the many fan theories and hidden meanings believed to be buried within the film. Now, with that immense legacy in mind, let's return to the secrets of its creation. Number 5. The Boy Who Didn't Know. While the adults on set were going through a grueling production, one person was completely shielded from the horror: the 6-year-old star, Danny Lloyd. Stanley Kubrick went to extraordinary lengths to protect the young actor's innocence. Danny was told he was acting in a family drama, not a horror film. He never saw anything terrifying on set. For the most intense scenes, Kubrick would use stand-ins or even a life-size doll. He was guided through his performance with care and gentleness, completely unaware of the dark story unfolding around him. In fact, he didn't see the final cut of The Shining until he was a teenager, and he admitted to being genuinely shocked and scared. One of the character's most unsettling traits was actually Danny's own invention. The strange wiggling finger he uses when speaking as his imaginary friend Tony was something he improvised during his audition. Kubrick loved the creepy, organic details so much that it became a signature part of the character. Number 4. The Unstoppable Axeman.
Here's Johnny!
It's one of the most quoted lines in movie history, delivered by Jack Nicholson as he smashes through a bathroom door with an axe. The scene is a terrifying display of rage, but behind the scenes, it was a frustrating exercise in logistics, all because Jack Nicholson was too good at his job. The props department initially built a lightweight prop door that would be easy to break through, but they underestimated Nicholson. Before becoming an actor, he had trained as a volunteer fire marshal. On the first take, he swung the axe and obliterated the prop door in seconds. It was too fast, not dramatic enough for Kubrick's meticulous pacing. The crew had no choice but to replace it with a much stronger, real wooden door. The scene ultimately took 3 days to film, and in the process, they destroyed around 60 different doors to capture the perfect sequence of splintering wood and maniacal fury.
Here's Johnny!
And now the golden flicker moment. Number 3. The real trauma of Shelley Duvall. The performance of Shelley Duvall as the terrified Wendy Torrance is one of the most raw and convincing portrayals of fear ever put on film. But what we're watching is not just acting. It's the result of what many have called a calculated campaign of psychological torment by Stanley Kubrick. Kubrick was a legendary perfectionist, and he believed that to get a truly authentic performance of hysteria, he needed to push his actress to her absolute limit. He isolated her from the rest of the cast and crew, was relentlessly critical of her work, and forced her to perform scenes over and over again. The famous baseball bat scene reportedly took a record-breaking 127 takes. For months, Duvall was in a constant state of distress, crying for up to 12 hours a day. The stress was so immense and so prolonged that her hair began to fall out. She was living a real-life horror story to create a fictional one. Her performance was initially criticized, with some calling it weak or overly hysterical. But as the stories of Kubrick's on-set methods became public, her work has been re-evaluated as a courageous and harrowing feat of endurance. She wasn't just acting terrified, she was genuinely at her breaking point, and Kubrick kept the cameras rolling. It's a chilling testament to the price of genius and the human cost of creating a masterpiece. Do you agree that this is the golden flicker moment? Number 2. The madness in translation. The slow reveal of Jack's manuscript is a turning point in the film. Wendy discovers that her husband hasn't been writing a novel, he's been typing the same sentence over and over. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. The endless pages are a chilling visualization of his complete mental breakdown. But Stanley Kubrick knew that this English proverb wouldn't carry the same weight in other languages. He wanted the feeling of descending into madness to be universal, not the literal words. So, with his typical obsessive attention to detail, he personally supervised the translation of the phrase for different international versions of the film. In the German version, the line is, "Don't postpone till tomorrow what you can do today." In the Spanish version, it's, "Although you get up early, it doesn't dawn earlier." In the Italian version, "He who wakes up in the morning has gold in his mouth." Each phrase, while different, conveys a sense of crushing, mind-numbing repetition that perfectly preserves the scene's horrific intent. It's a level of detail most directors would never consider, but for Kubrick, it was essential. Number 1. The author's fury. And finally, we return to where we started. The single most shocking fact about The Shining is the profound and lasting hatred its own creator, Stephen King, has for it. This wasn't just a minor disagreement, it was a fundamental clash of artistic visions. King's primary objection was the casting of Jack Nicholson. In his novel, Jack Torrance is a good man who is corrupted by the evil of the hotel. He is a tragic figure. But, as King famously said, the book is hot and the movie is cold. He felt Nicholson, with his sardonic grin, looked crazy from the very first scene, making his descent into madness not a tragedy, but an inevitability. He was even more incensed by the portrayal of Wendy. King wrote her as a strong, complex woman fighting to hold her family together. He saw Kubrick's version, played by Shelley Duvall, as, in his words, one of the most misogynistic characters ever put on film. Someone who is basically just there to scream and be stupid. King felt Kubrick had stripped the soul from his story, discarding the central themes of family tragedy and the struggle with alcoholism, and replaced them with a brilliant but cold and empty horror film. His dissatisfaction was so complete that in 1997 he wrote and produced his own television miniseries adaptation, a version far more faithful to his original novel, in a direct attempt to reclaim his story. Two masters, King and Kubrick, looked at the same dark hotel and saw two completely different ghosts. From a director's cold perfectionism to an author's fiery rejection, the story behind The Shining is almost as terrifying as the film itself. It's a masterpiece born from conflict, trauma, and an obsessive attention to detail that has kept us watching and shivering for over 40 years. If you discovered something new today, illuminate our day by clicking like and subscribe to Golden Flicker so you don't miss any behind-the-scenes stories from Hollywood. What film or actor do you want to see here in the next video? Let us know in the comments.